At my brother Christopher's wedding, everything felt wrong from the moment I stepped up to the check-in table. The coordinator didn't even look up, her hands moving quickly, almost robotic. Guests ahead of me received gold bands, the kind that looked like they belonged in a VIP section of a nightclub, not a wedding reception. But when it was my turn, the coordinator paused, frowning at her clipboard, then handed me something completely different. A cheap neon yellow wristband. It wasn't just a band, it was a symbol. A symbol of how little I mattered. I had spent the last 6 months planning this entire event, yet here I was, treated like I was just another guest, invisible in a sea of important faces. I wasn't a guest. I wasn't even family. I was staff, nothing more. I stood at the check-in table, my heart beating a little faster, ready to finally step into the celebration of my brother's wedding. I had poured my heart into this event. 6 months of planning, coordinating vendors, designing seating charts, tracking budgets, and personally sourcing linens, all for this day. I was a sister of the groom, the one who had made sure everything was perfect. As I approached the coordinator, I smiled, expecting some recognition for my hard work. But she didn't look at me. Her eyes stayed fixed on the clipboard, her hands moving with the efficiency of someone who just wanted to get through the motions. She was scanning names, barely even acknowledging the people in front of her. Ahead of me, I saw guests being handed thick, velvet-lined gold bands. They looked expensive, the kind of accessory you'd wear at a VIP event, something that made you feel important. Something that made you feel seen. I watched as my aunt and uncle took their smiles on their faces as they were ushered toward the ballroom, the sounds of the champagne tower already echoing in the distance. I felt a flicker of pride, thinking, that could be me soon. I was a part of this celebration. I had helped create it. But then, when it was my turn, the coordinator didn't smile or greet me. She just glanced at the list, frowned slightly, then flipped a page back and forth as if she couldn't quite figure out where I fit. I stood there, waiting, wondering if maybe she'd made a mistake. She finally reached under the table and pulled out a different box. Not the kind of velvet one holding the gold bands, but a plain cardboard box. She opened it, pulled out a thin neon yellow plastic wristband, and handed it to me without a word. It was flimsy. It was the kind of wristband you'd get at a cheap concert or a county fair, the kind they use to mark someone as old enough to buy a beer. I stared at it, confused. This must be a mistake, I thought. I wasn't just any guest. I was a sister of the groom. I had spent so much time and energy making sure everything went smoothly. The night was supposed to be about celebration, about family. I was supposed to be important. And yet here I was, holding a piece of plastic like I was no different than a random attendee who'd bought a ticket at the last minute. I didn't take the wristband at first. My fingers hovered over it, unsure. I wanted to say something, to ask if there had been a mistake. I had helped make this wedding happen, but instead I felt a pit growing in my stomach. The wristband was a symbol of my place in this family. I wasn't being given a golden band, a sign that I was welcome, a part of the celebration. No, I was being given a wristband that shouted, "You don't belong here." I could hear the voices of the guests ahead of me, their laughter and chatter blending into the background, but all I could focus on was the wristband in my hand. I was the reason there was a wedding in the first place. I had negotiated contracts, found the best vendors, pulled everything together. I had taken care of the details, and yet my family had reduced me to this. I was invisible. I wasn't seen for all I had done. I wasn't even given a seat at the table. No one had cared to thank me. No one had even acknowledged my sacrifice. And now, the wristband. My own mother, Deborah, appeared at my elbow. She didn't look at me. She didn't even acknowledge that I was holding a cheap wristband instead of something that reflected my role in the day. She was scanning the room, making sure the important guests were happy. Her voice was soft, a practiced whisper. She leaned in close. Her words meant only for me. "Just put it on Samantha," she said, barely glancing at me. "The budget was tighter than we thought, so we had to make some cuts for the dinner service. There's no plate for you." She paused, smoothing the front of her dress, not even waiting for my response. "You can grab a snack at the bar later, and try not to stand too close to the head table during photos. The yellow clashes with the color scheme." I stood there holding the wristband, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. My mother hadn't apologized. She hadn't acknowledged how hurtful her words were. She had just given me an order as if I were a worker, not her daughter. It was clear now. My role in this family wasn't as a sister, a daughter, or even a guest. I was just the staff, unpaid, unappreciated, disposable. I didn't put the wristband on. I couldn't. The moment I touched it, it felt radioactive, as if everything I had worked for had been reduced to this cheap plastic band. It wasn't just the wristband that stung. It was the realization that everything I had given had been taken for granted. I wasn't a part of the celebration. I was merely the person who made it happen. And now that the job was done, I was being discarded like an afterthought. I stood there holding the cheap yellow wristband in my hand, unable to put it on, unable to move. The weight of it in my palm felt heavier than it should have, like a physical manifestation of everything I had come to realize about my place in this family. I had spent months planning every detail of this wedding, pouring my time, my energy, and my expertise into making sure everything was perfect. Every little touch, every vendor contract, every design choice had been mine. I had negotiated the best deals, the best prices, and had worked tirelessly to ensure everything went smoothly. But when the moment came when it was time for me to be part of the celebration, all I was given was a wristband that screamed, "You don't belong here." I wasn't a guest. I wasn't a member of the family. I wasn't even considered important enough to sit at a table. I had been used. My labor, my time, my energy, all of it had been extracted, but there was no acknowledgement of it, no recognition, no appreciation. The worst part was the realization that I had allowed it to happen. I had worked myself into the ground, thinking that if I gave enough, if I did enough, they would see me. I had hoped that the perfect wedding, the one I had meticulously crafted, would finally make them proud of me. I had hoped that maybe, just maybe, they would realize how much I had sacrificed, how much I had given, and acknowledge me as a sister, as a daughter. But instead, all I had earned was a plastic wristband, a reminder that no matter how much I gave, no matter how hard I worked, I would always be treated like a second-class citizen in my own family. And it wasn't just the wristband that stung. It was the way my mother had treated me in that moment. Deborah hadn't even looked at me. She hadn't apologized or acknowledged the hurt I was feeling. She didn't care about how humiliating it was for me to be given a cheap piece of plastic instead of a proper guest pass. She didn't care about the fact that I was standing there, holding it, trying to hold myself together, trying to keep my emotions in check. No, she just gave me an order as if I were a hired hand and walked away. "Just put it on Samantha," she had said, as though it were nothing. Her voice was soft, practice designed not to carry, but it felt like a slap in the face. She wasn't sorry for what had happened. She wasn't concerned about how I felt. She was too busy making sure the important guests were happy, making sure everything looked perfect for the photos. She'd always been like this, though, always more focused on appearances than on the people around her. The optics, the image that was what mattered to her. Not her daughter, not me. She had looked past me as if I were invisible. The worst part was how easily I accepted it. I had always been the one who was expected to give, expected to do all the work, expected to make everything perfect. And for what? So I could be discarded the moment the work was done. So I could be treated like I didn't matter, like I was just a tool to be used and then forgotten. It wasn't just the wristband. It was everything that came with it. The years of giving and receiving nothing in return. The years of trying to prove myself. Trying to earn my place in a family that never truly saw me. And the worst part was that I had allowed it. I had let them use me. I had handed them the tools to tear down my self-respect, and I had thanked them for the privilege. But in that moment, as I stood there holding the wristband, something inside me snapped. I had been used, and I wasn't going to let it continue. It wasn't just the exclusion that hurt. It was the way they had treated me, like I was expendable, like my time and energy didn't matter. I had given everything for this family, and in return, I was given a plastic band, a sign that I was nothing more than a servant, a piece of the event that could be discarded when the work was done. It was a demotion, a reminder that no matter what I did, no matter how much I gave, I would never be considered an equal in their eyes. I wasn't a daughter. I wasn't a sister. I was just staff. And when the work was done, when they had squeezed every bit of value out of me, they would throw me away like I was nothing. I had spent so many years trying to prove myself, trying to earn their love and approval. But it wasn't enough. It would never be enough. I wasn't the perfect sister, the perfect daughter, the perfect worker. I was just the one who did everything for them. The one who always showed up, always did the hard work, always gave everything and asked for nothing in return. But in that moment, as I stood there holding that wristband, I realized that no amount of giving, no amount of effort would ever make them see me the way I wanted to be seen. I wasn't going to keep pretending. I wasn't going to keep sacrificing myself for people who would never value me. And that was the hardest part of all. It wasn't just the wristband. It was the realization that I had been invisible all along. As I stood there still holding the neon wristband, my gaze drifted to the gift table. Piled high with neatly wrapped boxes and envelopes, it seemed to mock me. In the center sat the wishing well, a heavy glass box that I had specially ordered because my mother was paranoid about theft. It was already half full with envelopes, each one holding gifts and well wishes. And somewhere near the bottom of that pile was mine, a thick, cream-colored envelope made of heavy cardstock, the kind that felt important just to hold. Inside that envelope was the culmination of 2 years of my life. 2 years of working overtime, of taking on freelance gigs, of skipping vacations, of living on a strict budget. I had saved for this moment $15,000, the money I had set aside for Christopher and Emily's first house, the down payment they needed to get started to make their dream a reality. It was the gift that would prove once and for all that I was a good sister, that I supported them, that I belonged. I had imagined the moment when they would open it, Imagine Christopher's shock, my mother's approval, my father's nod of respect. It was supposed to be the moment where I finally earned my place, where they would see how much I loved them, how far I would go for them. But as I stood there clutching that cheap wristband, all of that faded away. The fantasy I had built in my mind dissolved. They didn't want my support. They didn't want my love. They wanted my submission. They wanted my money, yes, but they didn't want me. They didn't see me. They didn't value me. The wristband was a physical symbol of that truth. It was a demotion. A reminder that no matter how much I gave, no matter how much I sacrificed, it would never be enough to make them love me the way I wanted to be loved. They were happy to take the check, happy to take my money, but they wouldn't even give me a plate of food in return. They wouldn't even acknowledge me as a part of the celebration and a part of the family. And in that moment, the weight of it hit me with the force of a physical blow. I wasn't just being excluded, I was being used. All those years of proving myself, of working to make them proud, had been in vain. I had handed them the tools to dismantle my self-respect, and they had taken them willingly. The check, the money, the effort, it had all been for nothing. They wanted what I could give them, but they didn't want me. And as I looked at that yellow wristband, the realization was clear. My gesture wasn't valued. It was disposable, just like the wristband itself. I stood there staring at the pile of gifts on the table, my fingers tightening around the cheap wristband in my hand. The weight of the $15,000 check in the envelope buried beneath the pile seemed to mock me like a final reminder of everything I had given and how little it was valued. I had spent 2 years working for that money, sacrificing my time, my energy, my life, and I had imagined it would be the one thing that finally made my family see me, finally made them appreciate me. But instead, it had been reduced to just another transaction, just another thing they took from me. I stood there, my heart pounding in my chest as the reality of what I had been reduced to settled in. I wasn't a sister. I wasn't a daughter. I wasn't even a guest. I was just someone to use. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Something snapped. I wasn't going to let them take that from me. I wasn't going to let them treat me like I was nothing. I had given them everything, my time, my labor, my love, and now all they had left to give me was a cheap piece of plastic and a seat at the back of the room. But I didn't have to take it. The wristband in my hand felt like a symbol of everything I had been forced to accept. Everything I had been made to feel was my place, but no more. I wasn't going to be invisible anymore. I wasn't going to be treated like I was less than. I wasn't going to keep allowing them to use me for their convenience and discard me when they were done. I walked toward the wishing well, calm but determined. I had the key to it, the key I had held for months, the key to the locked glass box where all the gifts were kept. My heart was racing, but my hands were steady. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't guilty. I was done being their servant, their afterthought. I slid the key into the lock, the soft click of it echoing in the silence around me. I lifted the lid just enough to slide my hand in, reaching for the envelope I knew was buried at the bottom. I could feel the cool weight of it, the cream-colored cardstock, the paper that had once been a symbol of my effort, of my love. But now it felt like a chain, a heavy weight that had been used to hold me down. I took it in my hand, feeling the heaviness of everything it represented. I had worked for that money. I had given everything for that family, and what had I gotten in return? A wristband, a demotion, the feeling of being invisible, the feeling of being disposable. I took a breath, steadying myself, then did something I never thought I would do. I slid the wristband into my pocket. It felt cold and natural against the fabric of my dress, but it was mine now. I wasn't going to wear it. I wasn't going to let it define me. Then, I opened the envelope, pulling out the $15,000 check. I folded it carefully, sliding it into my clutch, a sharp contrast to the wristband that had been thrust into my hands earlier. The check wasn't just money, it was power. It was leverage. And for the first time in my life, I realized I had been holding on to it all along. It was mine. It was my effort, my sacrifice, my time, and I wasn't going to give it away to people who would never value it. I took the empty envelope, the one that had once held my gift, and dropped the wristband inside. I sealed it as best as I could, pressing the wax back down, trying to make it look as if nothing had been disturbed. The envelope was a symbol now, just like the wristband. A symbol of everything I had given, everything I had let them take. But now, it was a message that I wasn't going to be used anymore, a message that I wasn't going to let them define my worth. I dropped the envelope back into the wishing well, the soft thud of it landing inside the box, sounding louder than it should have. I locked the box, the key sliding back into my purse, and turned away. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a sense of calm wash over me, a release, a freedom. I wasn't just reclaiming my money, I was reclaiming my dignity. I wasn't going to stand there and be treated like I didn't matter anymore. I wasn't going to play their game. The wristband, the envelope, everything they had tried to take from me, it was all gone now. I was done. The next morning, my phone started buzzing at 8 a.m. and didn't stop. The names flashing across the screen, Mother Christopher Father, brought a tightness to my chest, but I let them ring. I didn't pick up. Then the text started. My mother's voice came first, frantic and furious. "Samantha, we opened the box. What is this?" Christopher followed up with, "Is this a joke?" And then, "Where's the check?" The pressure in my chest grew heavier with each message. They needed that money for closing costs on Monday. Then my father's voice cracked through the messages. "You're selfish and petty, ruining your brother's moment because you didn't get a steak dinner. Grow up." I read the words calmly, sipping my coffee, but the anger in their messages felt like a physical weight. There was no apology for the humiliation I had faced. No concern for how I had been treated. It was all about the money, as if that was the only thing that mattered. Christopher's next message was even more direct. "You owe us that money. We already put the offer in based on your promise. If we lose this house, it's on you." The guilt they tried to throw at me was palpable, but it didn't land. Not anymore. They were angry, yes, but they weren't mad about the humiliation or the way they had treated me. No, they were mad because the ATM had stopped dispensing cash. But I wasn't going to back down. I had spent my whole life bending to their will, making myself small to fit their narrative. Not anymore. I wasn't going to apologize for taking back what was mine. I opened my laptop, clicked through the itinerary for the Maldives, my cancellation already in motion. When they called again, I ignored it. I was done being their emotional ATM. I wasn't going to play their game anymore. They could keep trying to guilt me, but it wouldn't work. Not this time. I knew in that moment that there was no turning back. The family I had tried so desperately to please, the one I had bent over backwards for, didn't care about me. They only cared about what I could give them, about what I could provide. For years, I had been playing a role in their story. The sister, the daughter who always showed up, always gave, always sacrificed. But as I stood there, my phone buzzing with more messages, I realized something that was as freeing as it was terrifying. I didn't have to play that role anymore. I didn't have to be the one who fixed everything, who made the sacrifices, who always put their needs before my own. I wasn't a background character in their story. I was the protagonist of my own life now. The pressure that had been building inside me for years, the weight of their expectations, the guilt they had placed on me, it all began to lift. I was finally free. Free from the constant pull to please them, to be the one who always gave without ever receiving. Free from the toxic cycle that had defined our relationships for so long. I'd always believed that if I gave enough, if I worked hard enough, if I loved them enough, they would love me back. But that was never going to happen, and once I let go of that hope, the relief was overwhelming. I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their validation. I was enough just as I was. I walked out the door that morning not in anger, but with a sense of calm, a quiet confidence that had eluded me for so long. The weight had been lifted. I was free to live my life on my terms. For the first time in years, I felt the freedom to choose my own path, to stop sacrificing myself for people who didn't see me, didn't value me. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. As I sit here now reflecting on everything that happened, I can't help but feel a sense of peace. It's strange, really, how often we stay trapped in toxic cycles, thinking that if we just give a little more, if we just work a little harder, things will change. But sometimes walking away is the only way to find freedom. We all have our breaking points, those moments when we realize that we're worth more than how we've been treated. And the truth is, none of us should have to sacrifice our dignity or our well-being for love or acceptance. If you've ever found yourself in a situation where you had to make that hard choice, where you finally chose yourself over the demands of others, I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment and let me know how you broke free, or if you're still fighting to find that freedom. We all deserve to be seen and valued for who we truly are, not for what we can give. So, if you can relate, don't hesitate to share your experience. Your story might just be the spark someone else needs to take that step. Take care of yourselves. You're worth it.